from 2015. Today's report stands on its own because this time in 2014, the Conservative Voice was looking for rental accommodation after being forced to sell their unit home. Abu Sayyaf, killed by U.S. Special Forces. The second-in-command of ISIL and 11 others employed human shields of women and children in the firefight, with a Delta force who arrived in Syria on Blackhawks and Osprey Helicopters. They freed a Yazidi woman held as a slave. They captured Abu's wife, Umma, who is also a senior death cult member. Former Australian Labor Party Minister Emmerson, no Whyalla wipeout there on my TV, pointed out in discussion with Andrew Bolt that Bill Shorten is opposition leader and Tony Abbott is Prime Minister. But when Tony Abbott was opposition leader, he opposed everything. Only Emmerson is wrong. Mr Abbott did not oppose everything as opposition leader, but opposed some things not worth supporting. According to Peter Van Onselen, the Australian, in June 22, 2013, Mr Abbott's opposition opposed 13% of the government's legislation. Corrupt independents had bypassed the then opposition to pass even the worst legislation. By way of contrast, independents now have a near-perfect record supporting the Australian Labor Party in opposing everything to do with a budget savings. It shows the media campaign against Mr Abbott is very effective with Captain Negativity, having little substance but much rhetorical effect. It also calls into question the professionalism of journalists who use it or accept it from Australian Labor Party spinners without question. Minister for Communications, Mr Turnbull, was also on the Bolt report today in interview with Mr Bolt. It is apparent he is not on top of his portfolio, showing no understanding of the irritation people feel at the partisan nature of ABC reporting on political issues. Two little boys, aged 5 and 6 years old, were wandering in bushland in Townsville, Queensland. They were found after 24 hours of searching. The army helped look. They are friends who went adventuring on a tricycle. Poor parents have probably aged years. Morsi, sentenced to death in Egypt, he has been instrumental in promoting the Islamic Brotherhood, which is responsible for jihadism. He is guilty of running an organization that has killed many in acts of terrorism. On this day in 1521, Edward Stafford, 3rd Duke of Buckingham, whom had Plantagenet blood, was executed for treason. It was probably one of the few executions by Henry VIII's court with which the accusation was the case. In 1536, many were executed by Henry VIII's order for a trumped-up charge of treason to presage the execution of Anne Boleyn. Tragically, her father was not among them. On the same day, Anne's marriage to Henry was annulled. Henry died 11 years later. Henry had 6 wives, but it is disputed as to how many he actually married. Henry claimed he had not really married his first wife, Mary, as his brother had married her first. Others said he had not really married Anne. Henry said he'd never really married Anne of Cleves. He probably should not have married that 16-year-old girl he had executed. On this day, in 1590, Anne of Denmark married James VI of Scotland. She later became Queen Consort of England. On this day, in 1805, Muhammad Ali became Wali of Egypt. He was Albanian and Muslim, and he had a vision for Egyptian peoples. Initially, he played all sides against each other until he had an opportunity to control things. Then he invited his fiercest rivals to dinner and slaughtered them while they were disarmed. He sought to create a European state and started by seizing all land from farmers for himself. He did this by setting high taxes and then claiming the land by forfeit. To create a modern army, he conscripted everyone. Some mutilated themselves to avoid conscription by blinding with rat poison or cutting off trigger fingers. He sought permission from the Ottomans to be a king, but went senile before he could achieve it. His son predeceased him, but his grandson continued the line. It is doubtful he understood what it meant to be European. On this day, in 1849, a large fire raged in St. Louis, Missouri. It had begun on a steamboat and traveled to many others before burning down many adjacent blocks on the riverside. It is the first noted incident of a fireman dying on duty in the United States. Captain Taji had tried to blast a fire break. In 1902, the Greek archaeologist Valois Stays discovered the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient mechanical analog computer. The mechanism had been lifted from a wreck a year earlier and was first recognized by Valois. It was made around 205 BC and could have been used as an astronomical device for astrological purposes. For some reason, the technology was lost. In 1915, the last Liberal government in the United Kingdom collapsed under pressure from World War I. In 1939, college baseball was broadcast on TV for the first time. In 1943, the dam buster raids were flown to destroy industry in Germany's industrial heartland. The pilots were brave and the casualties in the air and on the ground were very high. In 1954, Brown versus Board of Education decided that segregation in schooling was unconstitutional in the United States, but notable Democrats continued the practice. In 1967, following on the Suez Crisis of 1956, Egypt, egged on by the Soviets, demanded the UN remove troops so that Egypt could attack Israel. UN complied on the 19th of May. The Six-Day War was a tremendous loss for Egypt. U.S. President Johnson denied future support to Israel. Yitzhak Rabin oversaw the Israeli operations and said of it later, "Our airmen, who struck the enemy's planes so accurately that no one in the world understands how it was done, and people seek technological explanations for secret weapons. Our armored troops who beat the enemy even when their equipment was inferior to his, our soldiers in all other branches who overcame our enemies everywhere despite the latter's superior numbers and fortifications, all these revealed not only coolness and courage in battle, but an understanding that only their personal stand against the greatest dangers would achieve victory for their country and for their families, and that if victory was not theirs, the alternative was annihilation." In 1969, Soviets landed a vessel on Venus, discovering Venus is going to take a long time to colonize. 1973, Watergate became compelling TV viewing during a Senate hearing. In 1974, an LA police raid on a Symbionese Liberation Army headquarters killed 6 of the terrorists, including a social worker terrorist who had kidnapped Patty Hearst. A witness claimed the police shootings were unnecessary. In 1980, on the eve of the presidential elections in Peru, terrorists shining path attack a polling station. In 1984, over-opinionated Prince Charles spoke out against an addition to the National Museum in London, calling it a monstrous carbuncle on the face of a much-loved and elegant friend, which kind of describes his royal role. In 1990, World Health Organization, eliminated homosexuality from its list of psychiatric diseases. That's all I have. That's all I got for today. This is the 50th broadcast. Good to know. If later on you come by this video and you like it, feel free to share and comment. Spread the love. Be well.